Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Izzy Sandpit. I hope you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out on the channel, and I hope you hit like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to invite some of your friends to watch too. Today on the channel, I've got Sym Gharial, formerly of 80s Matchbox Beeline Disaster, and his new band, Primitive Ignorant. 80s Matchbox actually have played Glastonbury and Leeds Festival on countless occasions, and they've also toured all over Europe with the likes of System of a Down, Placebo and Queens of the Stone Age. Sym and I talk about some really great topics today, so I hope you enjoy it. Good afternoon everyone, welcome to my channel Izzy Sandpit. I'm Izzy, and today on episode 4 I've got Sym Gharial from 80s Matchbox, Beeline Disaster, and also Primitive Ignorant, his new band. Sym, welcome to the channel. How's it going,
thanks
man?
so much. Oh, thanks a lot for having me on. Yes, it's
No
a pleasure
worries.
to be here.
Mate, I'm looking forward to this. I've only just discovered your new project, Primitive Ignorance, which we'll come to later. It sounds amazing, mate. It sounds really good.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward. Firstly, how are you doing? I believe you just had a baby, so it's all a bit hectic at the moment.
Yeah. I had a daughter about 7 months ago.
Congratulations.
So yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, and she's really amazing and beautiful, and yeah, just so being quite hectic and kind of difficult. It's a bit like being at a festival without the drugs or the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's great, yes, and yeah, and just working on the new Primitive Ignorant record. Yeah, just in London, working on that at the moment. Actually, yeah.
Awesome. So we'll come to that later. So first, let's go back to sort of the beginning. Chat to me about the 80s Matchbox. You know, what was it like being in a band that's toured with, System of a Down, with Placebo, with Queens of the Stone Age? Some of my favorite bands. I mean, I noted those three because they're massive bands. What was it like being involved with the band? How was your relationship with the likes of Guy and Tom? And tell me all about it.
Oh, I mean, it was amazing, really. I mean, it was like a sort of a dream, in a kind of a lot of different ways. I think, when you're a kid and you're growing up and you're kind of, you're looking for, you're looking for something to be part of, and you're looking for something, to make sense of your own identity,
Yeah.
and to kind of to try and kind of understand, what makes you sort of combust. It was a real privilege in a way to meet the other four, at such a sort of at an age, where I don't know, we were just sort of like up for anything really. We were into all the music and the clothes and going out and taking drugs and all of those kind of things.
Rock and roll.
It was a sort of, yeah, it was the late 90s, and yeah, we had this feeling of kind of as a gang, as a group of people, just being totally unstoppable, and then really the band came after the friendships and the kind of the chemistry, and that feeling of being kind of, indestructible as a unit. Kind of made more sense together than we did individually. And so then, the band came along, and we kind of had this quite rare confidence that we knew the band was going to be really great. And I mean, I'm only saying that because I'm not in the band anymore, so I sort of feel like I can kind of, in a way, sort of accurately convey in my own mind into others what I think it was like. And it was really amazing and great, and like a one-off thing, a little bit like the Clash, which was kind of, we couldn't really sustain that energy and that level of kind of, forever. Do you know what I mean? But we did it for a long time. It's about 12 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
but it was great. It was great, and I still love all of them dearly, and we've all gone on to do different things and stuff. So, and it's quite interesting because everybody does quite different things.
Yeah.
In the band, I was never really that much of a songwriter in that band. I was just a bass player, really. But yeah, no, it's great.
No, it sounds, you've sort of painted a picture of how I interpret sort of rock and roll to be. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. You're going out there, you're enjoying the party. You're touring with all the bands. You live in that 90s. And we've all read about the 80s and 90s, and they just seemed wild. And, there's probably a lot of things you can't tell me, certainly not on a YouTube channel, but it's good that you recognize that it had a lifespan, because some bands, there's that much energy in there, and it's all very, you've got that friendship first, but that energy comes together and it makes something special, and 80s Matchbox, really were, a band that sort of set the tone for that period,
Thanks, man.
Just picking up on those tours with the likes of System and Placebo, how was it working with those guys? Because I mean, those guys are stratospheric, for the way that they've gone on to play massive festivals, which you did, and they've kept consistent over sort of 10, 20 years, what was it like? Give me a good, who did you enjoy working with the most, or, who did you get a really good vibe out of, in terms of touring with?
I mean, all those tours that you mentioned were amazing, really, and to kind of be on, do those kind of huge tours, huge venues and stuff. Like with System of a Down, it was kind of arenas around Europe for a month, and it was great. And obviously Queens of Stone Age is great, and Placebo is great. I'm still in touch with Brian Molko actually since then, and the tour was like.
Oh, do you know, I'm coming back to the UK next year to try and get to a gig. Placebo again, I've got to go and see it. So
they were all great, and we supported Iggy Pop as well, and it was a real sort of privilege to play. And I think those bands had picked us kind of specifically to come and play with them, so it felt really good. It wasn't like we were just on the bill because I don't know, like an agent had sort of tried to sort of muscle us on or anything. The bands had really invited us along,
That's brilliant.
So it was great, they watched us every night and we watched them and we hung out with them. There wasn't any kind of division or like, we didn't see the band or anything. It can be a bit moody like that sometimes. But
absolutely.
With all those tours, it was great.
That's awesome. Again, Glastonbury, Leeds, Reading, you played, I think Glastonbury, was it 5 times, and Leeds, Reading 6 or 7? I'm trying to What were those festivals like? Because Glastonbury's probably, for any band, it doesn't matter whether you're rock, pop, jazz, funk, anything, is the pinnacle. And then Leeds, Reading over the years, I think the lineup's changed, but what was it like to play those massive festivals?
I mean, it was great. I mean, I think the first time, I'd never been to Glastonbury before. I was one of the only people
I've never been to Glastonbury. I've never been.
Yeah, who had never been. And I remember the first time we got there, we arrived from having played Roskilde in Denmark. So quite often you were doing quite a lot of festivals. And so we just sort of, woke up at Glastonbury, and it was a really, really hot day. I remember it was really amazing. It was a really great lineup on that stage that day, actually. And we were sharing a dressing room with Arthur Lee from Love.
Right.
And we were on such a sort of, at that time, we were on such a sort of roll of playing so many gigs that in a way it was kind of difficult to comprehend. But yeah, looking back on it, it was great. And I've been to Reading a few times as a kid, I think sort of, like sort of a bit of a rite of passage, that one, going there like when you were sort of 16. And so it was quite weird playing them, but kind of amazing, like to, Glastonbury particularly, because loads of my friends would go and stuff, and so we all got to hang out. And it felt really good.
Did you feel? I know this might sound like a weird question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Did you feel famous? Did you feel like you'd made it, getting into Glastonbury, being on that stage, and did you feel like you'd almost arrived? Because that's how I'd imagine it feels.
Well, it's a weird thing, because I think kind of, when you're in a band that's kind of, whatever, doing stuff, kind of being written about or whatever, or playing gigs and whatever, you're doing it as a living, you're getting paid to do it. I remember there was always a kind of a feeling of like, it not really feeling that successful, even though looking back on it, it was, because there was so much kind of, pressure, I suppose, from sort of management and labels and stuff to be like, further up the scale, do you know what I mean? And so much kind of, particularly back then, I think because there were a lot of bands that had been lumped together in the NME, you know, and there was a lot of kind of, it felt like there was a lot of sort of rivalry of, oh, well, they're doing that and they're doing this. And so there was always this feeling in that band, for me anyway, I can only really speak for myself, that we were never really kind of doing enough, you know, which kind of seems mad looking back on it, because it was a great achievement for doing that, you know. But I think it's that pressure of like, of you know, when it becomes a bit more sort of I guess, you know, management and labels and stuff get involved, and
they start pushing, don't they? Benji Webb made a good point the other week when I spoke to him, and he said, you know, you get all your life to write your first album, and then after that it's pressure, and you know, and especially with the bigger the label, you know, if you get signed to a major, they want tour album, you know, and you're lucky if you get a break in between, and you can almost see why some bands, it gets to them, and before you know it, they implode, because the pressure of keeping I say the gravy train going, but keeping the momentum up, you know, because at the end of the day, these guys are supporting and investing. But, you know, it must be hard, because when you get to sort of Chili's level, they can go, well, actually, no, we're going to wait a few years. Or Muse, you know, you can push back. System of a Down, we can push back, and we're taking time off, and we'll come back and do that album in a couple of years, you know. Whereas this, I'm sure as you're going to get this pressure. So, yeah, it must be hard, and especially when you're young as well. You don't always process things the same way, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, at the time, it felt like, you know, pressure, but I think it's a lot harder now, because, you know, there's not really the same investment in bands at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's really sort of stumping up the cash to do anything. And there's so many more bands and artists and acts, and so many more places to read about stuff, that you know, you have to come out with a new record every year. Do you know what I mean? Whereas at least back then, you know, every 2 years was the kind of the cycle. You do an album, and then you tour it for a year, then you go and write it for 6 months, and then you come back. Whereas now, the pressure to do something on such a sort of shoestring budget, you need to have a record every year, you know. So in a way, I don't really know. I think in a way, you know, at that time, it was a different time, wasn't it? I think, you know, as bands, we were probably all quite spoiled, you know. We got far too much money, far too young, you know, didn't really know what to do with it, and kind of, you know, then you sort of confuse the starting line with the finishing line, or whatever the saying is, you know, and it all goes a bit wrong, you know.
Exactly. Well, you know,
whereas now, you know, you have to really, I feel like, you know, it's a lot harder, but it's a lot more authentic and genuine. Do you know what I mean? That kind of idea of being a rock star, or whatever is, or whatever that kind of term that was being thrown around, is just no longer relevant, you know. And
no. The days
a lot more about
music is gone, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's a lot more about the music, you know. And I think music journalism has kind of progressed quite a lot, you know. And it's a lot more of an interesting and eclectic time, I think, you know.
No, absolutely.
So it's just absolutely making music.
You know, and moving on to interesting times and fresh, Primitive Ignorant, your recent new band. I know it's only been around a couple of years. Do you know what? I'm not gonna lie, Sym. It's the first time I checked it out over the past couple of days, and my mind was blown. Mate, it's unreal, and I love it.
Really?
It's got a psychedelic vibe. It's bass heavy. I know that it said no guitars, but I did get a couple of guitars in there here and there. But it blew my mind. It's refreshing. It's really good. So if I think about the songs that hit me, you know, like the Ballad of Mark's Land Estate, you know. So tell me about the journey of the band, but what Primitive Ignorant is to you, and then tell me about a couple of the songs. You know, where they come from. What's your inspiration?
I suppose, like, in 2011, I kind of got clean from drinking and doing drugs. So I've been sober since then. And I suppose a lot of my kind of you know, journey back to kind of reality, you know, kind of involved coming to terms with kind of my ethnicity, and a lot of that stuff that I'd run from, and the person that I'd run from and hid from, and kind of, you know, almost mutilated during that time. And so I really wanted to make a record that was quite autobiographical, and set in Ladbroke Grove, kind of inspired by the Clash's Sandinista, that was kind of autobiographical, but very sort of different in kind of musical style. So there was no sort of rules or anything really, except that I wanted to tell a story really about growing up as a Sikh in Ladbroke Grove and the people that I met and my journey into addiction and out of addiction, and what my perception of who I was culturally was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's been a lot of talk about it in society and in the media, about what it meant to be British, around Brexit and whatever, with the kind of disdain shown towards refugees and this kind of trying to reclaim something. And I felt like it was quite important to make a record around that and what my experience of it was, not saying it's right or it's wrong, but do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's been so freeing, like I've just sort of worked on it on my own really with my manager, and there's some really great singers have come in and added vocals and stuff. So and so it felt like I was sort of with the album, it felt like I was making sort of a piece of cinema really, or theatre. So really, really enjoyable to make.
No, when you look at the sort of the track listing, the Sikh Punk 2, it's got that vibe that it's very much a story, because as musicians we sometimes and as human beings we reserve what we really think, and music we express it in a certain way, but you really put yourself out on the record, you know what I mean? And it does come across very autobiographical. You listen to the lyrics, you look at the video for the Ballad of Mars, and you're walking through the estate, and it's very, very, it's very retro, it's very deep. It's got a good feeling to it, man. I like it.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah. That's where my parents live, actually. That's where I grew up on that. So we went to where they live to shoot it and stuff with a guy called LeJunk, who's a great vocalist who I've worked with on a few tracks, actually. And and it was great. And it had sort of Daisy Coburn on there, and Mick Jones from The Clash, Joe Talbot from Idols. And it was it felt like I was sort of like assembling a cast of characters, and obviously like I wrote the lyrics, but they wrote the vocal melodies. So it felt like, they were kind of telling my story, which kind of gave it this quite interesting
really
kind
across,
of.
mate. It really has come across.
Oh.
Just touching on that, I'm half Lebanese. My father's from Lebanon, moved over here when he was younger. You're of Sikh origin. Were you born here, Sym? I didn't manage to find that information. Yeah, so you're born
I was born in London. Yeah,
exactly, same as me. So I was born in Warrington. And what was it like growing up as from a Sikh parents? What was it like? You could be honest. You can hear your opinion.
It was really difficult at times, because I think in the 1980s, I think there wasn't really as much understanding. I don't think. No. I think in a way, like there weren't as many Sikhs around. Asian culture just was kind of not represented at all. I mean, it's still underrepresented. In the media and in the press,
especially in sport,
and TV and film, and sport and cinema. But back then, it really was, and the stereotype was very sort of prevalent. So it was really, really hard. And I think a lot of me just wanted to be somebody completely different, really. As a kid, I sort of threw myself into watching football, really. And then at 15, 16, I sort of found booze and drugs, really, and then threw myself into eternity, and was lucky to sort of come out the other side. So I found it really difficult. And to a certain degree, I still do find it quite difficult. I don't think it ever really goes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. From personal experience, it's always in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Even then, there was still a stigma of I wasn't English. And it's like, I was born here. I was born in England, so obviously I live in Dubai now. Born in England, and you authentic, you class yourself as English. You're born there. You're proud of your heritage. You're proud of your family. You're proud of what they stand for. But you've got this thing on TV where it's the division and the divide and the picking out the racial slurs and the it's because of this, and I don't want to get too much into politics because I try and avoid it, but it's an interesting topic that I connect with you on that level, because you never shake it. It's always in the back of your head, and you always think one day it might happen again. And it's sad really, because we're all, if you chop us in half, we all bleed.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
the point.
sure, man.
You know,
But that's the dark thing about racism and prejudice, you know, and hierarchy is that, you know, the more sort of obvious examples, you know, are there, you know, but
yeah,
it's almost like it's the subtle kind of unspoken prejudice and racism and judgment that goes on is the
exactly.
really dark, it's the dark shit,
Yeah,
really.
it is.
Um,
It is.
you know, I'm not saying that you know, people who lose their lives and you know, people who are killed, you know, uh, I'm not saying that that's not dark. I just mean
No,
that,
no, absolutely.
I just mean it's this unspoken thing that
Yeah,
when you're talking about it will never go away. It's that thing, and that paranoia is always there, you know, which
yeah,
is
no.
which is really sort of messed up, you know. And will it ever go? I don't know. I mean,
So moving back onto the music. So who were your influences growing up, Sym? Who did you look up to? Who were your idols?
I mean, really, it was the spirit of punk music, um, you know, maybe not necessarily the bands. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I was into the bands and am into the bands, but more just a spirit of freedom and
yeah,
kind of individuality and kind of being able to sort of be whoever you wanted to be. And I think punk music kind of gets attributed to like,
raw.
you know,
Yeah,
too broad sort of punk like thrashy guitar music, but I think it's much deeper than that, and it's
no,
kind of
absolutely.
allowed anybody to be anything they want, you know, and to take any kind of music and or take an instrument and do whatever you want with it. I mean, I've never really been a musician in the traditional sense of the word, um, you know, I'm not like good technical musician, but I think, yeah, the spirit of punk and the ethos of punk has kind of allowed me to be able to sort of find my own way with it. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Which I really appreciate. So that's always kind of inspired me, I think, you
no,
know,
absolutely.
rather than
Okay, sorry.
necessarily like specific
Yeah.
bands, you know. Yeah.
Oh, so fair enough. So you just enjoyed the music and what it did and how it took you through a journey, and no, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't always idolize, we don't always put people on a pedestal. There's only a handful of really influential singers: Chris
Yeah.
Cornell, Anthony Kiedis, and Matt Bellamy. They were my three sort of vocalists that shaped my voice and over the years and shaped who I am as a musician. Albeit I never got to the level you did. I've never played any major festivals. You know, I played the Academy a few times, and that was always
Yeah.
good. But we all have our path in life, and I'm happy to have played on stages and performed in front of people. So it's still a blessing, you know, to have done that. And I'm sure you feel the same way. You know that punk and your music has given you an option to sort of ascend and play in front of thousands. You know.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's just, I think it's that thing of just, you know, when you
Yeah.
have an instrument, you know,
Yeah.
you can do
Got
whatever
four
you
of them.
want with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Do you
know.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than have to be like particularly technical, it doesn't matter, you know. I think it's
Yeah.
just trying to tap into that freedom of like everybody's a musician and everybody can make music and you know, you
Yeah.
don't particularly now, like I do a lot of recording, you know, electronically, and you know, you literally don't even need to be able to play an instrument. You know, you can just use a keyboard and make music
Yeah.
and make sounds and just create sounds out of nothing. There's
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
bottomless pit of ideas. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just really great. Yeah,
And that shows in, again, in Primitive Ignorant. You got a lot of electronic dance, funk,
yeah,
pop, techno, you know, vibes
yeah,
in there. Some really groovy bass lines, some really good overdubs with, you know, with the electric, you know, with the electronics in there. For me,
yeah,
it's I can only compare it to Nine Inch Nails, mate. It just
yeah,
that's all that came to my mind. I thought this is great. This is refreshing. It's something a little bit different, and it's got almost a modern vibe to it. You know, it keeps it
yeah.
relevant. So yeah,
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate
honestly,
that.
yeah. So
Really appreciate that.
so let's lighten it up a bit. You're a Liverpool fan, okay?
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
United fan. We're going to talk some
Oh,
football
okay.
now. So,
Great. Yeah,
to be fair, Sim, if I'd have known you're a Liverpool fan, no, I'm joking. No, I'm not going to do that. I
yeah.
lived in
Yeah.
Liverpool for 8 years.
Done the interview,
A lot of my friends are Liverpool fans. It's
yeah,
it's quite amusing. So, um, yeah. So you go and watch Liverpool most weeks. I see you tagging yourself on the grounds. I think it's because I saw you tagged at the Emirates the other week.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was there
That
for
was
the
it.
Arsenal
So
Liverpool
yeah. So
final.
Memorable games, favorite players?
Well, my favourite Liverpool player of all time is definitely Robbie Fowler,
Right.
and my memorable times. Um, yeah, probably the European Cup final in 2005. Actually, I had a ticket to go to the game, but actually we were just about to start a tour with System of a Down, so I
That's a sacrifice.
I watched it on a ferry to Portugal. But yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Liverpool as a kid, you know, with my mum and stuff. And so,
Whereabouts?
whereabouts in
Yeah,
Liverpool?
Liverpool. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, in Formby.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I used to go to Anfield a lot, but you know, I kind of stopped going in like sort
Yeah.
of because I sort of got into music and the band and was basically kind of touring for so long. But I just yeah, it's been great to get back into going and stuff.
No, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
being a big United fan, and it's funny because I look back on. I've got a funny story for you about the cup final, and
No, 96.
no, no, the Champions League final at Istanbul, and
Oh, okay.
I was watching it in my mum and dad's house. I was sat in my room, and I was texting my mate Baz, and he's an Evertonian, and
Right.
you know how Evertonians were a little bit bitter about it all. You know, bless them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, 1995, they're still holding on to it. That Paul Rideout header against us,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah, yeah,
funny
yeah.
because at half time we were 3-0 down, and he's texting me and he's going, "This is great TV. This is fantastic," and the banter between us. And then when you
Yeah,
got the one goal back, and I'm thinking, you know, here we go. And then you obviously you scored, and then the Jersey Dudek, the old wobbly legs, and it was just
yeah,
a great. Even though I'm a United fan, it was still a great comeback, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I always
It
want to
was,
see
yeah.
English teams do well in Europe, but that was probably a pinnacle moment.
It was, yeah. I mean, the Barcelona game a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, was great
Yeah,
as
the
well.
Divock Origi, that was great as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So those two moments probably the best. But in a way, I sort of I've only ever seen one guy talk about it, but the best game I was probably at was this Liverpool Oldham game in about 1993, where in those days they didn't really have they didn't tell you how much added time there was.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
Got to 90 minutes, you just sort of thought, oh, any minute they're just going to blow the whistle. And I remember the referee played about 8 minutes of injury time, and we scored twice.
for the
But
third
it was, and
time.
so that was like my favourite moment. Yeah, I think we were about eighth in the league, and it was Oldham, and Anfield was about half full. But it was sort of different. I just because they never used to tell you how much injury time there
No,
was.
no.
So it's just random. Like, why is he not blowing? It was just it's just a different time, wasn't it? Yeah. So, but yeah, so I kind of stopped going for a long time. But I've always sort of thought that there's quite a big similarity between sort of football and music, and
Yeah,
in terms of like the tribalism culturally. I think if you sort of take out all the kind of you know um, rubbish that can go on, I
yeah.
think like and mindlessness that can go on. I think that there's definitely like a tribalism in it, and that sense of like wanting to be part of something, or trying to make sense of one's own identity culturally.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes them quite similar. I think.
And I think as well, when you look at football and you look at music, and you know, you go around the world and you say to someone, you look at a band T-shirt, for example, and someone sees AC/DC or Led Zeppelin. Same with a
Mm.
a football jersey. You know, um, you it breaks down barriers. You get a football out, and pretty much anyone can kick a football around. You don't have to be superb and technical at football to play
Yeah,
football. That's what I love
yeah.
about football. I wasn't a bad player myself. I wasn't great. You know, I played for many
I was like
years.
it as well.
You know,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, and then same with music. You know, everyone could pick up a guitar, everyone could sing, everyone
yeah,
could pretty much play, you know, bass and drums. You don't have to be particularly fantastic to play a musical instrument, but
yeah,
um, the sense of unity. Football breaks down barriers. We might not be able to converse in English language, same with music. It just brings people together, and that's what I love about football and music as a whole. The two things that are big in my life, you know. So yeah, no, I totally get that you found the affiliation with football and music really, because they do go hand in hand, you know.
Definitely. Are you from up that way, Manchester?
Yeah, so I was born in Warrington.
Right. Yeah.
I lived in, and then my mum's from Salford, so she went to
Right.
Manchester United games when she was younger. And
Yeah.
my dad's been a United fan ever since, you know, he was young. So I was brought up in a Manchester United family, really. You know, and we had season tickets for a long time.
Right.
We gave it up pretty much the year that Fergie left. You know,
Right.
and
2013.
yeah, and because at that point I was refereeing football, and I was refereeing in the Northern Premier League, so I was refereeing a decent standard of football, and
Right.
so we sort of gave it up, and no, it was. I'm sort of glad I did, because it's been terrible. You know, it's been, and you guys, you know, have sort of gone in the ascendancy, whilst we've sort of taken that dip, and you know, it's probably going to be 30 years before we win another Premier League.
It all went a bit awry, didn't it, when Ferguson left?
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
absolutely. So,
but it's all City now, I think. Anyway,
no, absolutely. So, Sym, I've got a little bit of a fun section. These are just fun questions I'd like to throw in. So the first one is I'll start with the same questions that I used last time. Gravy or curry on chips?
Neither.
Neither. Oh, Sym,
Yeah.
what do you put on your chips?
I think, yeah, I just like my chips plain, really.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah, so
Sym.
that was the wrong answer, wasn't it? I had two options. I don't think I've ever had gravy on chips, to be honest.
Mate, you need to try some gravy or some curry sauce. I love curry sauce.
Yeah.
So, okay, mate. So for breakfast, you're having crumpets or toast?
Crumpets.
Crumpets, good man. I
Yeah.
was honestly out here. I've said it once. I need to get crumpets. I don't care how much they cost. I'm getting crumpets. So
it's a bit more bourgeois, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're having 4 people over for a dinner party. Dead or alive, who are you having?
Mick Jones, Robbie Fowler, probably Richard E. Grant.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And that's difficult, isn't it? The last one. What sector of society would you go into?
Anyone. You can pick anyone. Music, family, famous, dead or alive?
Dead or alive. Yeah, and then probably my friend who died when we were 17.
Right, okay.
So that sounds a bit morbid.
No, absolutely. Let's celebrate. What's his name?
I could. Adam.
Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, welcome to the party, man.
Yeah.
What are you cooking?
Yeah. Well, I can't really cook at all. So can it be something that I would like to think that I could cook rather than I can actually cook? What would we have?
You order a takeaway if you like.
I don't know. I think. I mean, that's quite difficult, isn't it? That is quite difficult.
Bangers and mash. I'll cook. I'll make the bangers and mash.
Okay. All right. Yep. That sounds good. Yep.
And you're stranded on a desert island for a year. Who are you taking with you? One person.
Who would I take? I would take probably my daughter.
My
wife might
get this question always sort of gets. It seems to be quite a one that gets people reflective. I'd take my missus, to be fair. You know, I'd be happily stuck on a desert island with her for a year.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be quite interesting if but yeah.
You'd have all the time in the world to watch her grow for that year.
Yes. Yeah.
And you
Although
get
it'd be quite
rescued at the end of it. Everyone gets a happy ending in my
get
story.
rescued after 24 hours. Yeah, so that's all right. Yeah.
And Sim, so tell me a fun fact about being on tour. Something great. It can be a bit bad. It can be good. Tell me a fun story of something that happened on tour that you'd like to reveal to the channel.
Well, an incident or just a general sort of.
Tell me a funny story. I always like the funny ones.
Um, well, we were supposed to go over to do some shows in America, and we'd just done this Halloween gig in Brighton, and I lived in this quite small flat, and I had about 30 people back to my flat, and then the tour manager came to pick me up at 6 in the morning, and everyone
Right.
was obviously still awake. So I didn't really want to kick everyone out because I was a bit like, I don't want to offend anyone. So I said to this girl, I said, you keep the key. And then when I get back from America, I'll call you and you're going to have to let me into the flat.
Right.
So, so we went to do these shows in America, and then the band were leaving to come home after the tour, and it'd been a sort of great tour, and kind of been in the hotel, been at this party, and I sort of couldn't find my passport. So and I'd kind of run out of money, and it was a Sunday, so our management office was closed. So the band had to sort of go back without me to London, and I was just left in New York, like on my own with no money. And I mean, I don't think I had a mobile actually at the time either, and was just sort of stranded there. And yeah, just ended up kind of having this mad scenario, well, number of scenarios where somebody put me up for a bit, and then I met this guy who was just really horrible, and ran away from him. And then anyway, I ended up sort of managing to get the money wired to me, but then I
Yeah.
decided to go for a drink, spent loads of the money, then got in a cab. Then a cab broke down on the way to the airport, so I nearly missed the plane.
Oh my word.
Then got on the plane, passed out on the plane, and then just woke up, and I was at Gatwick, like just 8 hours. I was just blacked out, and then got back to Brighton, and then couldn't get into my flat because that girl still had my key.
Do you know what? I wouldn't have trusted
She was
anyone.
like, "Oh,
My house.
I've gone to." She was like, "I've gone to Southampton or something for like the weekend, so I'm not going to be back for." And I was just So
That's a great
that,
story, Sim.
that was quite annoying. Yeah, uh, but great at the same time. Yeah.
No, I
And
once.
then I eventually got into my flat, and it was totally trashed because
Oh man,
obviously I'd left all those people there.
literally.
Uh,
Did you charge the girl?
no, I'm still friends with her on Instagram. Maybe she might watch this. They
Share it with
might
her. We'll
flood
tell her she was
back
given a
there.
mention.
Yeah, but I might mention it to her, and then yeah,
Well, still, I'm glad you're still friends on Instagram at least. So that
yeah,
counts.
yeah, 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 yeah. But
So,
it
no, go on. No, go on.
I was gonna say it was a while ago, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not very good at holding a grudge. I'm not really a grudge holding person. So I'd have probably
Oh
forgotten
yeah.
about a week and a half. And you seemed quite
Oh,
similar to him. So
I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't. I'm not annoyed about it at all. In
no,
fact, it's good to bring out stories like that.
yeah,
It sort of makes it seem less boring, yeah, than I am now. Yeah. So.
no, absolutely not. So the final thing I'm going to ask you before we wrap it up, mate, is
Yeah.
upcoming plans for Primitive Ignorant. You said you've got a new album in the pipeline. Any plans to tour or anything like that? You know, you said you're working with your manager. Is it very? I know you've got your baby at the moment, so that's probably.
Yeah.
Is it very loose? Are you not planning on sort of trying to push it to be, or you trying to make it, back again, hopefully back at Glastonbury at some point?
It's definitely plans to do a live show.
Yeah,
I mean, it was slightly complicated because of the pandemic, so quite a few times I went to kind of pull it together, and we ended up being kind of a lockdown or there being restrictions,
yeah,
and because of the number of people it kind of involved bringing together,
yeah.
it was so complicated. So I put it to one side for a while, just been working on the music really. I mean, there's all other different kinds of music that I'm working on as well. Anyway, it's not just that.
Right.
But I Yeah, we will be doing some live shows.
Awesome.
Just not totally sure when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you let me know, and if I'm around in the country, I'll definitely have to take a trip. You know. So, right, Sym, that's all I have. Thanks for your time, man, and thanks for coming on Izzy Sandpit. I really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mate, you've been a fantastic guest. You've been really interesting. The chat's been completely different to everything else. So, mate, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with your daughter. You know, I hope she's well.
Thank you so much.
You know, send my peace and love to your family. I truly hope that Primitive Ignorant is successful, and keep doing what you're doing, man. And thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers, man. Thank you.
See you later, man.
Bye.
Bye.